I'm not a principal. My name doesn't show up on the website when you go to KIP. I'm a teacher. I would consider myself a mess. I'm the type of teacher that still uses chalk. Usually have chalk all over myself. My hair is usually up with a pencil. So right now I teach 8th grade math at KIP Academy, but when I first started in 2007, I taught 8th grade self-contained special education at my placement school. That year, another core member at my school applied for this young citizenship scholarship thing that pretty much brought kids from low-income communities to the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia. They provided transportation and admission. So, like really excited. All right, well, I'm going to Philadelphia. The entire 8th grade was eligible, And so I thought that it was an oversight when I realized that my students weren't on the class list. But it wasn't. My principal did not believe that my students could handle the excitement because, they're emotionally disturbed. She failed to realize that most of my students were actually classified learning or speech and language impairments. So this wasn't new, right? My students were never treated like the general education students. Our classroom was in the 6th grade section instead of being in the 8th grade section. They were considered special education students instead of 8th grade students. So they actually were not allowed to sit with the 8th graders. And so, my kids never felt like they were normal. And in fact, my principal told me that my job was easy because I only had 12 students. Yeah, right? She never considered actually that my students were significantly behind and they were below grade level. The majority of them could read maybe at 3rd grade reading level, right? We understand this. A lot of us go through this, right? None of them knew their multiplication facts. But my job title as 8th grade teacher was clear. I was supposed to prepare them and send them off the next year to high school. So my second year, I quietly applied for the same scholarship that the other core member applied for, and my proposal would allow for 42 students to go on the trip. I received the scholarship. And when I went to go tell my principal about, this is like really cool and I'm really excited, she was like, that's great. Maybe you could be a chaperone. We'll find a teacher to cover your class. And knowing that she would yet again treat my students differently, I had prepared accordingly. Well, Mrs. Gonzalez, I wrote the proposal because my students were not allowed to go to the trip last year. So if my students can't go, I'm going to forfeit the scholarship. I was scared. Well, I thought I was going to get one of, the little letters, and they say it's a letter in your file. And you're like, what file? What are you talking about? Right? I was like, there goes all my overtime opportunities out the window. She's going to hate me forever. But I knew that it was the only way that I could stand up for my students. I knew it was the only way that she would take me seriously. To threaten to give up the scholarship, it was the only way to let her know that I'm not going to stand for this. So on November 7th of that year, I'm not going to say it with you, it was my 23rd birthday. We went on our trip. We went to Philadelphia. And it was the first time some of my students had ever traveled outside of the building. And it was a community school, so most of them had been at that school, in that building, since kindergarten. But you know what? That day, my students finally felt like they were just like any other 8th grader learning about the Constitution. So this experience taught me that a leader isn't someone with a title. You don't have to be someone that has a certain charge. You don't have to be on the board to be a leader. A leader is someone that fights for something that they believe in. A leader is someone that fights for something, for what is right and just. So I might not be a principal, but I'm a leader because I fought for my students. And every day when I go to school and I teach,